Hi everyone, and welcome again back to Disney Magic Nostalgia. It's Lawrence here, and I am the head of the channel, and I'm just going to do this quick little video slash review about as the Lion King has now been nearly as of a week tomorrow, the Lion King 2019 remake will have been out for a week in the cinemas, and I have seen it. And if you've already subscribed, you may have seen the review I did, and also one that my friend Sam, who's also a part of this channel, did as well. I am going to review something within the Lion King franchise that was originally released on February 10th, 2004, and that is The Lion King 3, Hakuna Matata. Now, yes, as I said, this was released as a straight to DVD and video, because video was still around at that point. As a straight-to-video sequel. Well, officially, it's the third movie in the Lion King franchise. It is credited as that, even though in North America it is actually known as the Lion King 1.5. So yes, basically. This is a sort of recap of the events of the original film, but it mainly focuses heavily on Timon and Pumbaa. Basically, this is a very comedic sort of touch on the tragic events of the first film. It begins actually, the opening scene takes place in a movie theatre, an animated movie theatre, with Timon and Pumbaa watching the beginning of The Lion King. And the opening scene was actually the first trailer for the film released on the DVDs that came out before it as an advertisement. So, basically, yes, they're in this studio, and the Circle of Life opening from the original film begins, and Timon interrupts the song with singing over it, and Timon and Pumbaa suddenly get this idea. Why don't they tell everyone the story of how they actually really did come into the story of the Lion King? I don't think it's considered to be officially canon. As I say, when I watched the Lion King, the scenes that are revisited in this one, I wouldn't imagine them being there watching the original film. But sorry if you notice me scrubbing my hair there. I have just come out the shower and my hair's still drying. I'm just going to make this quick video quickly. So yes, this is a. So yes, it's not the most well received. In fact, no, I don't think it was generally very well received, as it might have been seen as some kind of rip-off, or no, I mean it's not as much a rip-off, but something that it just isn't needed. I mean, The Lion King 2: Simba's Pride was a pretty good sequel. It was one of the Disney straight to Disney video DVD or DVD sequels that actually isn't too bad. What's good about this one is that this is potentially Timon and Pumbaa's own film. I mean, they had the back in sort of 1995 to 1996, they did have the Timon and Pumbaa TV series, Timon and Pumbaa Around the World. Which actually that was a very fun series. That was about them, and basically what they did in this one was they had the idea. It actually begins with telling Timon's backstory. Yes, after the scene in the movie theatre, it goes to start telling Timon's backstory as reference to the fact that in the original film, at the beginning of the Hakuna Matata song, they actually told Pumbaa's story of where he was before he found Timon, before they met and became friends, that he drove animals away with his farts, his gas power. So yes, it explains the story that Timon was in a colony of meerkats with his family, and basically couldn't fit in. He was on the digging crew, digging tunnels to get away from the hyenas, which coincidentally, yes, the hyenas are actually led by the trio Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed. So how that fits in, I don't know, but it's just good to see them, and I think most of the Whoopi Goldberg returns to voice Shenzi in the scenes. So Timon was brought up on a colony of meerkats, and he's not really fitting in because he's clumsy, he's not good at digging, so all the meerkats basically try to avoid him and just try to push him to the back of the colony. And then Timon's mother, who is actually voiced by Marge Simpson, So if you've seen the film, you'd instantly recognise her voice. She wants to keep his spirits high by telling him she'll find him a place within the colony. And the new character, also called Uncle Max, Timon's uncle, who can't stand Timon either. He's very much on the colony side because he keeps wrecking the tunnels that they make, and because they have to, the meerkat colony has to stay underground to be protected from the hyenas. And then he gets a chance of being put on sentry duty, which is basically he has to stand guard while the meerkats dig the tunnels. But because he breaks into song, basically the trio of hyenas hear him, and that starts a big chase up with the meerkats and the hyenas, and then basically the colony's then headed up to there with Timon. So there's this emotional scene. I say, even though this is a very funny take on The Lion King, it still has some quite emotional scenes. But yeah, there's this scene where Timon basically decides to tell his mum that he has to go and find his place. He doesn't belong with the colony, he can't fit in. So at first his mother's reluctant, of course, she's an overprotective mother. But then so Timon goes and he heads towards the Pride Lands, and he meets Rafiki, where Timon's actually lost. So Timon's lost, and he doesn't really know what he's looking for. He doesn't know what he's seeking. And when he tells Rafiki that he is looking for a life, he's just looking for the life of luxury, with no problems, no worries, and says, "Oh yes, you." And Rafiki says, "All right, well you seek Hakuna Matata," and he tells him to find it. Timon has to look beyond what he sees, and this is where it does get kind of funny. Because Timon's obviously going to take this literally as because it's like a metaphor. He takes it literally. So Timon wanders further towards Pride Rock after that scene, and coincidentally, he and Pumbaa just come across each other when actually Pumbaa spotted Timon, and Pumbaa was worried about him because he's a little creature on his own. And at first, Timon's petrified of him because he thinks Pumbaa's going to eat him. But then, when Pumbaa tells Timon his story, he finds out he's perfectly harmless. That they're both on their own, trying to find their place, their dream home. So then they team up and become friends. And then actually, when they reach Pride Rock in the morning, it's the beginning of the birth of Simba. So yeah, the circle of life scene starts, and then actually as they're walking towards the sunrise, and they get all the animals of the Pride Lands are running towards them to go to Simba's ceremony, and then when actually what makes this really funny is that the scene where basically all the animals bow to Simba. In this version, what's happening is Timon and Pumbaa are rummaging through the crowd, and Pumbaa actually farts, which causes the animals to basically all sort of faint, and that's sort of how they're bowing in the scene. And then Timon finds this place, I think, which is supposed to be sort of near the waterhole area of Pride Rock, and they settle in for the night because at first they think it's a nice spot with a nice little water feature and a hammock, and they can get nice little refreshments. And actually what happens is they wake up in the morning, which supposedly this is a continuity error if this is meant to be canon, so I don't know if it is, but it's only the next morning after Simba's ceremony, and they wake up to the song "I Just Can't Wait to Be King," basically when Simba and Nala are trying to ditch Zazu. And then what they do is to get them involved in another scene, Timon actually whacks the animals with a stick to be quiet, basically when all the animals are on top of each other and Simba and Nala are at the top finishing the song, and that's what causes the animals to lose their balance and all fall up on top of each other. And originally that's the scene where Zazu gets trapped underneath all the animals. So then they decide to move on, and then they actually then come to the elephant graveyard, and that's the scene where Mufasa comes running in to rescue Simba and Nala from the hyenas. And then they go into sort of Scar's hideout and the hyenas hideout, and they happen to enter it right in the middle of the song "Be Prepared," and you just see basically the shadows and an instrumental backing of you see the shadows of the hyenas marching with an instrumental version of the track. You don't hear any of the lyrics, and then what happens is the next place they go to is near the gorge, is in the gorge actually where the stampede is, and just as they're going in, the stampede is actually starting, and they jump on the back of one of the wildebeest to avoid being stamped on, and coincidentally the wildebeest they're on top of gets to the front of this cliff, and then suddenly stops, and then they end up falling off the wildebeest and into this big end up into this big waterfall that goes down, and then that's the end of that scene. And then there's this another kind of funny emotional scene where Timon and Pumbaa, they're thinking about giving up by now because they don't think they'll find what they're looking for, but Pumbaa tells Timon he doesn't really have a home and that he's all alone, and then Timon realises they may as well stay together because they've got a lot in common and they clearly become friends. And when they wake up in the morning, then they find that they're actually near the sort of resort area in the desert where they come in the second film, where Simba happens to be collapsed. And that's where, when they realise what they found, Timon realises the true meaning of what Rafiki told him is to go beyond what you see means to just keep going until you know you found what you were looking for. Then that's when you get the musical. They start to make. That's when they decide to officially make Hakuna Matata their motto, because Timon then remembers what Rafiki told him, that the meaning of the perfect life is Hakuna Matata. It means no worries. And then you get the sing-along of Hakuna Matata, and then that leads into the scene. Actually, no. Before you get into the scene where they take Simba in, it cuts back to the colony with Timon's mother actually talking to Rafiki, and of course she's worried about where Timon is now. She's worried about what's happened to him, and Rafiki tells her that basically he told Timon that to find Hakuna Matata he has to look beyond what he sees, and this then really sends his mum into a panic because it's a metaphor. He'll take it literally. So she and Uncle Max decide to go after Timon, and yes, actually, there's a funny bit where Timon hits Rafiki on the head with his stick as a reference to him hitting Simba when he hit Simba with his stick in the first film, and also he hits Timon when he's trying to teach him the value of Hakuna Matata in the earlier scene. So then it cuts to them seeing the buzzards, and then they decide to go and charge the buzzards. So you see a close-up frame of them actually running in, which is where they came in the first film, and then you get this section of freeze frames because they're showing it like it's a movie that they're putting together as you watch it. And that's what makes it funny, and there's several scenes where it pauses as a freeze frame and cuts back to the present time at the movie theatres. Like there's one time where Pumbaa goes and gets all these bugs in a popcorn container, and then there's this other time right in this emotional bit of music in the scene where Timon and Pumbaa, sort of what the running gag is for the film is that true friends stick together to the end, and right in the middle of this very emotional piece of music, this slow piece of music, and then he stops it right in the middle before you hear the last note of the song, and Timon's crying, and there's this funny scene where Pumbaa gives Timon a hanky, and he blows into it and then gives it back to Pumbaa, which is it's really funny. That's why I like it. And then basically, when cut back to the scene after they've taken in Simba, there's this sequence where Simba's now a young cub, and of course he's been through this tragic experience of losing his father. He's had to leave his home due to guilt. Things he thinks he should be guilty for. But then what happens? There's this kind of funny / sad scene where they're playing to the Lion Sleeps Tonight, where there's Simba wakes up 3 times in the night, waking Timon and Pumbaa up, basically because he's not used to basically sleeping on his own, and he's lonely, and each time Simba wakes up for a different reason. There's these shots of Timon and Simba walking across the log bridge. It's the same bridge in the sequence where you see Simba growing older. And then basically the last time he wakes up, it's because he's had a bad dream. So they invite him to go and sleep with them. And then towards the end of the Lion Sleeps Tonight, and then it cuts to a morning where Simba's now in between sort of cub and adulthood. He's got like a short mane, and so this is the point now where Simba's really put his old life behind him and is accustomed to, the life he's living now, the so-called Hakuna Matata, where where they have this snail slurping contest, and it's actually, I think it's to is it Lawrence of Arabian music? I know the scene it's parodying is from footages from another film. It's a famous piece of music. I don't exactly know what it's from. Because I've had to make this video quickly, I did forget to check it out. This snail slurping contest, and they also use lyrics from the song, and then it cuts through showing just small sections of scenes from the original, as well as some new scenes, like them lying on the grass together, and then bouncing in vines, and there's this funny scene in a jacuzzi where Pumbaa's supposedly farting to make the bubbles. And then it cuts right to the scene where Nala comes in. She's found Simba, and through the "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" sequence, there's this antic where, to put them in scenes from the original, Timon and Pumbaa are seen causing many of the events that seem to actually bring Simba and Nala together, even though what they're intentionally doing is trying to split them up, but it goes wrong. Each attempt they do backfires, like they try to throw a porcupine's prickle at Nala, but Simba then just pulls it out of her paw and spits it back at Timon. There's a scene where they throw a beehive, but Timon throws the hive, but all the bees are still in the same position, and then they chase him instead. And then the scene where Simba and Nala roll down the hill is actually because Timon and Pumbaa held a vine there to try and trip them up. And when Nala and Simba trip over it and fall backwards, it throws Timon and Pumbaa right to the earth. It throws Timon and Pumbaa up in the air. It's quite funny. It's funny to see these scenes again with this comedy in front of it. And then you get the same scene, but except it's from a behind. You see the same scene when the Timon and Pumbaa's line in "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" And if he falls in love tonight, and then they start crying when they finish. But you see it from behind them, not in front of them, and then basically, then what then happens is they find that with the persuasion of Nala, Simba has decided to return to Pride Rock. And colouring from the scene in the movie where you see Rafiki go and approach, you see them approach Nala, Timon and Pumbaa, where you see him there. It follows on from that scene where Nala's had to explain so many times about Simba's past because they don't know about it because he never told them. And then Timon's really kind of pissed off by this. He decides, if Simba's going to abandon us, he's going to abandon us. But Pumbaa's reluctant to and goes after him back to Pride Rock. And then there's a sequence where Timon thinks he's okay on his own. He's still happy. He's still got his Hakuna Matata. But Rafiki's obviously still hanging around the place and basically knocks Timon on the head again in the scene where he tries to, basically he's going to try and persuade Timon to follow his friends and that he won't have his perfect life without them. So yeah, and then there's this scene that mirrors the scene of the slow motion scene of Simba running back through the desert to Pride Rock, to the Pride Lands. But in this case, it's Pumbaa doing it. It's Pumbaa in the scene, and then Timon catches up to him, and then you have the repeat of the line, the friends stick together to the end, and then it cuts straight to the hula dance, and then Timon's hula dance, and then basically that's when Timon and Uncle Max coincidentally just come back in. They've just found right in the middle of the battle between Scar and Simba and hyenas. They show up and they found Timon, and together they devise a plot to lure the hyenas into a trap by getting Uncle Max and Timon's mum to dig tunnels, while Timon and Pumbaa keep the hyenas distracted by entertaining them, like doing freestyle dancing and sort of juggling circus tricks, like juggling plates and stuff. It's quite funny, and then eventually they lower the hyenas into the trap, and you do see the clip of Scar jumping on Simba and Simba kicking him off, and then after that it cuts to the scene at Pride Rock where Simba's going to take the throne again, and it just includes footage. It's got a different piece of music over it. It includes footage of Timon and his mum having an emotional talk, saying, that Timon saying that he did find his place and that it still doesn't feel like home without his family. So then after that, the final scene is all the meerkat colony now live in the resort with Timon and Pumbaa, and Simba's there as well at the end scene in the water. And then right at the end, you go back to the movie theatre where Pumbaa decides he wants to watch the film again, much to Timon's rejection. But what happens is there's this funny scene where all the characters from The Lion King come and join them, and then suddenly all the other characters from the classic Disney films come into the theatre and sit down and join them. You can't see any faces, but it just shows black shadows of all the characters. Like you get Mickey Mouse and Snow White and Aladdin and the genie. All the characters basically from the classic films come in to watch the film, and then that's the end. So yeah. As I say, I did enjoy it. I watched it many times with my sister. I remember I went and got it on release date back in February 10th, 2004, I think it was. It was originally... it was produced by... just got to double check. It was produced by Disney's Australian studio. Australian branch of Disney Toon Studios. Directed by Bradley Raymond and George Mendoza. It features the voices of the original cast like Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella. He was Pumbaa. And Matthew Broderick and also Rafiki's actor as well. John, what's his name? I just need to double check. Can't seem to remember. Right, no, yeah. Can't believe. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Julie Canver as Ma, Timon's mom. Yeah. Uncle Max is voiced by Jerry Stiller. Yeah. Maureen Kelly as Nala. She comes back. Whoopi Goldberg. Jim Cummings as Banzai. Robert Gloomy. That was Rafiki. Yeah. As I say, so right, well, yeah, sorry, I had to do a quick recap there, but I did, nonetheless, I really do enjoy it. Well, I like it. It doesn't top the original anyway, and it's not as good as Lion King 2 either, but me and my sister and I used to watch this a lot, because we were both big Lion King fans. It was just a funny take on the original story. Okay, so that's my review of the Lion King 3/Lion King 1.5 Hakuna Matata. Okay, thanks all for watching. You're all awesome. See you soon. Bye.